Hello there, anyone who might be interested in the title of this video. However, I'm going to name it. I've been reading now for almost 3 years, and I have to confess it has had a great impact on my life. It's one of the things that I think are one of the best decisions that I ever came to make, or habits, one of the best habits I have ever decided to have. And at first, 1 year or 2 years, I wasn't that serious in reading, but I had read some good books. But it was difficult for me to know that something was happening inside my mind. This video is a raw, authentic reflection on how I think self-reading has affected my mind for those past 3 years. This is different from the essays that I write and post here. So I might be tempted to do a research, very deep research on how reading books affects your mind. And this is not one of them. I'm just trying to reflect on how I think books have impacted my life. Well, it's early in the morning, and I just woke up. I just brainstormed some things that I think I should put in the video itself. I live in the city, and there might be some disruptions, and I'm going to try to be as mindful as I can of those noises. And in case you identify one of them, just ignore them. That's one of the downsides of living in the city: noise pollution. This video is going to be raw. I'm only going to add some subtitles because apparently my English is my third language. Because of my accent, so that's why I'm going to add the subtitles. And maybe because I think there will be some mentions of books here and there, I might be tempted to put the faces of the books on the screen so that I can recommend some of them. So let's get into it, because I'm starting to sound boring here. Well, reading, in my opinion, is not, and not that I have said not, understanding the words that are in a book, knowing the or cow, or knowing the pronunciation of the word table, or having the ability to understand a language as you are reading. My main focus on the concept of reading is the act of understanding what the author was trying to communicate. So this involves reflecting on the things that you think the author was trying to communicate in a book, and and after understanding these things, trying to apply them in day-to-day activities or relationships, or anything that can that is present and can help improve your life. This is one of the parts that I like about social media, especially uh, it's not social media, it's the internet, I guess. Going online and finding people. For example, after I finished reading Crime and, Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. It was a very difficult book for me because it's a classic literature. So I had a difficult time trying to understand what Dostoevsky was trying to convey through his work of Crime and Punishment. And going online and asking for an analysis of Crime and Punishment, going on YouTube and finding these guys that analyze this book deeply, listening to someone like Jordan Peterson, who is a Canadian public intellectual, analyze someone like Dostoevsky helps really a lot, especially for someone like me who is self-taught. I don't have literature classes where I can go and sit down and listen to a professor suck out all the wisdom that is in a work of literature. So the point is finding lessons in these books and wisdom in these books and trying to understand them and make adjustments in your life that will make you a better person and grow as a consequence. And that's what I think reading should be like. I guess should is a big word. I mean, that's what I think. Yes, that's what I think reading somehow is. Now, there's more to it than that. And great, great works of literature or books. I hope I remember the point that I have just thought about, and I want to say something before I go to that. So I hope I will remember that because I have this problem of forgetting the point that I wanted to say when I start a new point. When I think of reading, I categorize books in my mind automatically. There is the fiction and there is the non-fiction. On the fiction part, these are for those who are not acquainted well or aren't used to reading fiction. Fiction is the narrating of fictional worlds, maybe stories. Yeah, yeah. Let's call them stories. And the non-fiction part is the facts about the world. Maybe a psychological book, a philosophical book, something that explains maybe how the mind works. The non-fiction books are about facts about the world. So in the fiction part, I categorize them in form of literature, especially classic literature. I like classic literature because it's somehow difficult to read, but it's somehow worth it at the same time. There is the literature, and then there is the other ones that are for young adults, or I guess they are called new adults. But I don't pay attention much to those, although of they are works that are not at the level of the literature level, like for example Kafka or Dostoevsky or Leo Tolstoy. They are books that are not that level, but they have the potential of being at that level. In my opinion, I care more about those than the ones that they don't carry so much wisdom, because I guess literature focuses on the society, things that a great literature writer, I don't know, I'm not trying to say that I have all the answers here, but literature brings emotions and tries to communicate things that exist in the society through telling stories. That is that is somehow how I think literature is one of the characteristics of literature. And then there is the fantasy and the science fiction. For myself, I don't pay much attention to that. I'm not saying that they are irrelevant because I don't pay attention to them. It's just I pay attention to literature more than them, and that's just me. I'm not saying that people should do this because it's the right way to do or anything like that. That's how I categorize the fiction part. And then there is the non-fiction. There is not much to say about the non-fiction. It is just what it is. Okay, let me go back to the point that I said that I'm going to say earlier back. I had to pause the video itself so that I can remember that point, and it's a miracle that I have remembered. This is where I think, okay, in the non-fiction part or even the fiction part, the more I think you have information about the world, the more you will, the more wisdom you will extract from books, the more perspective you will have after reading after reading a book. You will be more likely to have a better perspective when you are reflecting on a book. Let me explain. A while back, I was having a conversation with a psychology student, and I told him about my interest in the act of thinking itself, and we decided to define what thinking is. And this is the conclusion that we made, and I hope I'm going to do the justice of the conversation that we had that day. uh, Thinking is using the information that you have in your mind to analyze, consider, and view ideas, something like that. Okay, we had we made an illustration of this. It's like having a sieve. I hope this is the right word. A sieve between your mind, the storage of your mind, and the external ideas that are coming from outside. So someone says that a cow has 3 legs, and then when that idea comes through this sieve, you consider that idea through the information, the background information that you have about that idea. So if you have never seen a cow, you will take that idea as true. But if that statement contradicts what this sieve of yours has an understanding about the world, and the statement that the cow has 3 legs. Okay. Let me make this statement more useful. All cows have 3 legs. That is more useful than the cow has 3 legs or a cow has 3 legs. All cows have 3 legs. If you have observed a cow with 4 legs, and most you have understood that most cows have 4 legs, and everywhere you go, everyone agrees that their perception of a cow, they count 4 eggs. This statement of three eggs in all cows will bounce off because it does not align with the the sieve that you have. Now this raises a bunch of questions that I have just uh, come to realize while thinking about that. Is that I hope I'm going to do justice to these points. How do you determine that this person who has just made a claim is wrong and everyone is right about that perception, and or he is, or vice versa? I don't know what I have said. Let me repeat. You don't know whether he is right and everyone is wrong, and you don't know whether he is wrong and everyone is right. How do you determine that? And this is a very interesting question, because it stems from questioning of societal norms. But the statement all cows have 3 legs is not a good example when it comes to something like analyzing such kind of a question, because it appears to be more obvious. But when it comes to other claims, things start to become a little bit more complicated. I have forgotten the thing that I wanted to add. There goes the noise. Very distracting. Now, before I go on a different path entirely again, let me first explain why I mentioned this sieving machine or sieving characteristic of human being. The more I'm going to make a claim here. The more advanced this sieve of yours is, the more you are good at critical thinking. Okay, the point is, the more I think I read, the more I read, I think the more I read, the more I modify this sieve of mine. Because you might read a book and realize you didn't completely know anything about that topic, and there is a problem with that, because that book might be a starting point of learning a certain topic that might be wrong based on other works that have come after it and disproved it as wrong. So you might think that just because you didn't know about a topic itself and you have read a book about it, you might be compelled to think that you are right about it. But in fact, it has been disproved as wrong by other people. So I think you need to have some kind of a humble position based on that information that you have gotten. On the other hand, you might, I'm having a lot of thoughts, you might be not a beginner, but an intermediate or advanced level on that particular topic. So, reading this book, you will be using your previous advanced sieving machine on that topic to analyze this book. So you won't be surprised by the information in the book itself, because you're already at the intermediate or advanced level of that topic, and you will you will use your sieve to analyze this book. So it's a different kind of, there are a lot of factors playing along this saving machine. And this is one of the reasons that I think coming across the advanced part of the book before the beginner book is a one plus for you. I haven't even started on my list, and I think I have already spent a lot of time, the time that I thought I was going to use while recording this video. As a matter of fact, I think I have already explained the first point, which is improved thinking, critical thinking. Because as I have explained, the more advanced the sieving machine is, machine sounds like a weird word, but bear with me on this one because I'm having a hard time coming up with a better word. The more improved this saving machine is, the the better you are at critical thinking, because you are analyzing external information and considering them to and considering what you will internalize and what will bounce off. Yeah, let me get to the next point because I think I'm going to take a lot of time here without addressing most of the points. I'm going to take, I hope it won't take 1 hour because I highly doubt anyone will be interested in hearing me up for 1 hour. Maybe one or two. And that first point can be attributed, I think, mostly 70 or 75% to non-fiction and 25% to fiction. Uh, I guess I'll address the 25% in the second point, which is improved empathy. Fiction books are amazing. I like to think of them as taking a vacation after reading a difficult non-fiction book. Well, that depends on what kind of fiction you are reading, because someone like Dostoevsky harder is hard to read than some non-fiction books. Now, some non-fiction books are easy to digest, easy to read, but when it comes to classic literature, especially these Russian writers, it is hard to read. Like reading Crime and Punishment took me like almost a month, or even more than a month, to read that book. It was very sweet to read. It's satisfying to read, but difficult at the same time. So fiction books are amazing in the sense that you get to enter the world, first of all, of the characters themselves that are in the book. You identify with the characters as they are written. So you immerse yourself in this worldview of this character. And it becomes more complicated than that because you even enter all other characters in the book. So you are kind of immersed in this exercise of entering into the shoes of a character, getting out of them after the next character starts to be considered, and the more characters the book has, the more you have to shift from one character to the other. So it becomes more amazing, and there are levels to that, because if the book is written in first person, the more you will enter in the shoe of this guy, the more you will identify with this character. You will feel like you are the character yourself. You will be lost in this world. The more it is written in first character, the more you are immersed in the book. If it's written in third person, you are more likely to not be as immersed as in the first person. Another thing is you will enter the world view of the writer themselves. You'll be like, I like good writers who consider the reader. How do I know this? At least in my opinion, is me myself feeling like the writer doesn't even exist. It's like you are watching a movie and you have completely forgotten about the outside world. You are immersed in this work of fiction. So the point is, you are in a constant exercise of immersing yourself in other people's minds. They are not your own. This is not your mind at any particular point. So you are exercising knowing what it's like to be another person. So in real life, this doesn't even include a lot of reflection, but in real life, you'll find yourself, well, someone was making noise outside, so I had to write the point itself so that I won't forget because I was in the middle of a sentence. You will have an easier time immersing yourself in another person's shoe in real life. And this is, I think, what empathy and compassion is all about, viewing a situation from another person's point of view. Now, there are other works of non-fiction that address these things, especially philosophical books that revolve around empathy, around ethics, morality, uh, free will. These books address somehow ways of being a better person in the society. However, I think the fiction books do a lot of do a lot of work when it comes to that, because immersing yourself in a character is such an experience. For example, I'm not going to use Dostoevsky anymore, although he's worth being mentioned like 10 times, but let me use another example. For example, I recently reread what my my English. I recently reread Flowers for Algernon. I don't know if it's Algernon or Algernon by Michael Keyes, and it's about this guy that is done an experiment on in his mind that improves his intelligence. He's at the bottom of the food chain in terms of intelligence. Even a mouse beats him in solving a maze. I'm not going to spoil more on that book because I'd like you guys to read this book, because it addresses how we treat people we think are below us. on any front of the imagination. That's a big point, but intelligence more. How we treat people that are of low intelligence in the society, and how we treat people of high intelligence in the society. Now, intelligence is another topic that I hope to write an essay on in the future, because there is more to intelligence than what the society has labeled as intelligence. But yeah, it's a good book. Even the impact of having a high intellect on a person. And of course, there is the young adult books about teenagers falling in love and that kind of things. Those are things that are uh, easy to read, fun to read. Although, as I'm reading them, I'm always like, sometimes I wish I had read this in high school, because I think they are more suited to high schoolers, especially teenagers. It would have been more effective to me as a teenager compared to me right now as uh, a 20 something year old. And this is not to reduce the utility of their existence, because they are not written by kids, they are written by adults. But it would have made my teenage life more deeper. For example, there is this book called The Fault in Our Stars. I know this is weird, maybe for someone who is into philosophy to talk about, although I don't think it's weird, so I don't mind. Have I mentioned the book? It's called The Fault in Our Stars by, how is that guy called? He's called John Green, and I have just seen on my list the author of Flowers for Algernon is called Daniel Keyes, not Michael Keyes. In the Fault in Our Stars, is these two teenagers are in love, and they are both in ailment. They are both ill, and it involves a lot of emotions around love. And when it comes to love, that is another topic that, when explored philosophically, it is not what it seems to be like in the eyes of society. And also the likes of The Perks of Being a Wallflower, Catcher in the Rye. These are all great books for young readers. And this is not only for young readers, because I think even adults they can gain a lot from these works of fiction. And I highly recommend these books, especially if you are not used to reading. They are great as a foundation, because they don't require a lot of mental work like the works of Dostoevsky or Tolstoy or Franz Kafka. And they are great as a work on their own, of their own. I don't know the right words to use there. These works of fiction, as I mentioned earlier, makes one more consider more other people in the society. You learn to not to think of only yourself. I hope that makes sense. We are running out of time. It's taking a lot of time than I thought. Patience and resilience. Right. Why did I think of those two things? Patience is in the form of starting a book and going all the way to the end. This is where I think patience and resilience lies. It is not an easy thing, especially especially in capital letters, especially in this age of social media and online presence and everything like that. It is very difficult to focus. I'm reading this book by Johann Hari called Student Focus. It addresses the impact of social media platforms to our focus as individuals. And I hope to make an essay on this in the future, because I think it is valuable information to have as an individual, especially my generation. Starting a book and going all the way to the finish teaches you patience, in the sense that you understand your limits as a human being. I don't think it is in the capability of anyone to read someone like Leo Tolstoy, War and Peace, in one read. I think if you have gotten to that level, I think you should be declared a reading god, because that is insane. You become patient. You learn to love the journey itself. The fun is in the journey itself. Even after finishing a book, you're left with this feeling of unsatisfaction. You feel like, as I was reading, for example, a work like Crime and Punishment, I was feeling like this book is so much fun that I would want it to continue for the rest of my life. I want to read something like this for the rest of my life. I don't want to imagine that it will come to a point that I will finish this book. Now, that sounds like it's illogical in some sense, but I think it's it's in the, it stems from the understanding of being in love with the journey itself rather than the destination. The destination, in this sense, being finishing this book. And the resilience comes in the sense that there's a kid crying. Resilience comes in the sense that you show up despite anything. Like right now, I'm reading like two books at the same time, and I don't think, unless something very bad happens to me, that I won't revisit these books in the future. Let me check the meaning of the word resilience. Maybe I'm using it. I think I'm using it the right way. It's the act of uh, yes, showing up despite falling down. Let me put it this way. Great books, in my opinion, have this ability to teach us that suffering is part of the journey. Christianity does this well by teaching us how flawed we are as human beings, and the only way to grow out of, to be okay in this world, is understanding how flawed you are. And suffering comes from the innate nature of being flawed. Well, I understand an atheist might have a problem with Christianity, but I am also an atheist, and I don't think these religions are that all bad. There are some things, very great teachings, that we can learn from these books. That's why they have withstood time. They have been around for more than 2,000 years. They are addressing important things in the society. Now, that's a big topic to explore there. But I think resilience comes in the sense that by understanding the flawed nature of us as as human beings, and suffering being a part of being human, when you are in a position of suffering, great books teaches us that this is part of being alive, and the impact of that suffering, it wouldn't be as bad as it would be if you had not read these books in the first place. For example, in the book Man's Search for Meaning by, why am I forgetting the name of that awesome guy? Right, he's called Viktor Frankl. I don't know how to pronounce these English names. In that book, he explains about the suffering that was there when they were being colonized by, I guess it was the Germans. I haven't reread that book in some time, but the main theme of that book is finding meaning in suffering. This is the consequence of learning or reading great books. You come to learn that suffering is part of being human. It's extremely normal. It is extremely likely that every person that you see or interact with is going through a battle you are not aware of. They are suffering somehow in a way that you can't even tell. And this is where compassion and empathy comes in. You become less judgmental to even other people's actions because you understand that they might be going through a certain form of suffering that is making them do certain actions. For example, someone yells at you or scolds at you or steals from you or does something. You understand that there is something more to this than what is uh, what you might be compelled to think is at first glance. Well, there's so much to talk about there. I think I'll go to the next point, and I guess it's the last one. As a Kenyan and an African, I have come to understand my place in the world, and this is very important because of a lot of factors. There is a lot of struggling here in Africa, especially when it comes to having a good life, basic needs, and stuff like that. And reading all these works from Russia to UK to USA to China to Japan to Australia, India, name everywhere, to Nigeria to everywhere, you come to understand your place in the world, and they inform a lot your position and what you can do about your position in the world. We have very great books. We are fortunate enough to have a very great writer here in Kenya called Ngugi Thiong'o. He's a Kenyan writer who writes literature books about Kenya, and this is I really enjoy reading his books because I identify a lot with what he is trying to communicate. It's like you are a Russian and reading a Dostoevsky novel. It will have a greater impact on you than me as a Kenyan reading this book, because that's a person of your own society that has written that book, he understands what it is like to be Russian. And in this case, we have Gogewa Thiong'o who understands what it means to be a Kenyan, or at least he informs us what it was like to be a Kenyan in the 60s, in the 80s, especially in the late 1900s. He knows his he knows what he's doing when expressing what was happening in the late 1900s. And in comparison, it's like reading that Man's Search for Meaning. You you identify with how it was like to be in that culture at that particular time in history. And the reason I brought up Gogewa Thiong'o is because reading history is extremely important, because history is one of the best ways to inform the present. It makes us to not to repeat things that didn't work in the past. Scientists know this well because they use trial and error to come up with new things in the society. They don't repeat the errors because the errors they are not useful. But when it comes to human society, we find ourselves repeating history because we don't read history, we don't learn from history. And this is where I think history is very important, because it informs the present, and you are better equipped knowing your history as an individual as compared to not knowing. Reading Gogewa Thiong'o and how Kenya was in the late 1900s informs us on how we ought to act right now as a society, and not repeat the mistakes that our ancestors did. Okay, they did some things that were right, but they also did some things that were wrong. And we can learn from the things that they did were wrong, that turn out to be wrong. And we can also try to embody the rights that they did, because we can find ourselves doing the completely opposite of the right that they did, and we do the wrong of the right that they did. Talking of our place in the world, I think we as Africans have a lot of thinking to do, a lot of work that we need to do, and it's not about physical work. I'm not talking about that, but it's shaping our society, enriching our society, embracing all sorts of human beings. We have to nurture all types of people. This is what makes a culture rich. If everyone is the same, things are extremely boring. We need we need to have all sorts of people that are good and competent at what they are doing. Whether it's someone who comes up with a new artificial intelligence idea in terms of technology, whether it's someone who have discovered a new way of farming, whether it's that guy who draws magnificent forms of art, we need to embrace difference rather than fighting or feeling a lot of envy to that person. You know, envy, according to, I guess it was Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, he was a philosopher. He said that envy doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing. You can turn it to a positive thing. You can observe this person and you feel a certain form of envy. It might be a sign of what you might want to be like. It is not all negative, because I have also come to appreciate the things that we do have here in Kenya that are unique to the world, and there is a lot of them, and we need a lot of storytellers here in Kenya to tell the stories out there to the world. I think most of them are beautiful, and in the in my some of my videos and in the near future I'll be telling these stories. And yeah, this is the reason I'm not going to dwell on this point a lot, but it's worth to mention that we are going somewhere as a country, but there is a lot that need to be done. We have a lot of potential, but if that potential isn't paid attention to, it will easily dwindle down to, is dwindle the right word? I don't know. It will fade away and will be just just a mediocre country. Okay, I think I'm going to end this video here. I have addressed some things. Uh, yeah, this is how these books have been affecting my life, and I'm only just beginning, so I'm excited to see what they might do to me in the future. That is, if I still have time on earth, because we are never guaranteed of life. Uh, it's it's a part of dying is a part of life. Death is a part of life, and I guess I should have addressed death in this video, because also reading great works of books have made me make peace with death and understand the art of prioritizing the important things in life. Once you understand that you are not going to be around forever, it changes your worldview very deeply, and you start to focus on things that really matter, things that are beneficial to you and to the society and to the world as a consequence. So there's a lot going on. It's just that the video itself, I feel like it's very long already, and I doubt most people will view it to uh, the end. So yeah, I hope I'll make an essay on this topic in the future, and I'll try to make the points as precise as possible and short, so that I can address most points. But I hope this video was informative somehow, and it can. I hope it might have helped someone to maybe start reading, even if it's having that feeling of wanting to read a book, because I think by 2100 reading a book ought to be declared as a basic need. I know that's a bold claim, but if humanity progresses as it is and we maintain the human part of ourselves, and we upgrade as a consequence, because uh, times are changing very fast, extremely fast. They are changing to the point that we are not able to cope up with it as human beings. I see the future of humanity as one. I hope we will come to a point where we think of ourselves as humans. I like viewing societies from the lens of humans as animals. Uh, we are not we are not that special, but we are kind of special at the same time. I know that's contradicting, but I mean, our intelligence is what distinguishes us from the other animals, and I hope we will reach to a point as humans where our intelligence will show us that we have a lot in common as humans, despite our ideologies. And that is a quote I heard somewhere. I don't know who said that, and I think it's true. It's extremely true. These pauses make me reach into the depths of my mind and come up with points that I think make sense to me, and I hope uh, they make sense to everyone. And this is the reason I make these videos, because you never really know whether your point makes a lot of sense or whether it's original until you go out there and test it against other people, because people are very smart. People out here are very wise and smart, and they give constructive feedback on things, and we grow as a consequence. We help each other as we move forward. So I guess I don't know if I insisted on that last point, but the reason I might not have insisted on it is that I see it as a thing that I'll be doing a lot in the future, especially explaining the condition of the African, and the things that I think we might do as a consequence. Uh, I don't know if you guys are hearing this, but there's a lot of background noise and somehow annoying. And as I said, this is one of the downsides of living in the city. There's a lot of noise pollution, and it's annoying, especially when you are trying to make an important video like this one, or at least it's important to me, or trying to read. It's very difficult to read with all the noise. So yeah, I guess that's it for this video. As I said, I hope I have made, even if it's a little bit of impact to people. And yeah, maybe stick around for more essays, more structured essays. I'll be writing essays, and there are times where I think I'll be having these kinds of authentic conversations that are not that structured. Uh, Authenticity is good, and honesty, and especially in this age of social media. And maybe you'll seeing more of this in my channel, so you might uh, I hope to see you in the next one. So Cheers and have a great time ahead.